There's hands!
And I see his feet.
Searching inside the shed.
There's hands!
In this gripping video, 2 bank employees are held hostage inside a Florida bank by a dangerous suspect. As tension builds, a negotiator attempts to calmly reason with the armed man, hoping for a peaceful surrender. Meanwhile, a skilled sniper quietly positions himself in the background, waiting for the perfect moment.
Limited exposure. The sniper took a planned and deliberate shot through a computer monitor.
I knocked out too. I get it. I can empathize with that situation. Believe me, I can. Okay? And I want.
Suddenly, with the target in sight, the sniper takes his shot. The bullet slices through a computer screen, striking the suspect. Immediately after, flash bomb grenades are tossed into the room, creating bright flashes and loud noises.
Firing through barriers is a trained and routinely practiced skill by Lee County Sheriff's Special Operations.
A SWAT team swiftly moves in, carefully checking to ensure the suspect is no longer a threat while the hostages are safely rescued.
After the suspect was shot, distraction devices, known as flashbangs, were set off as a Special Operations unit moved in to remove the hostages and...
As seen from body cam footage of a Tucson Police Department SWAT officer, the team is chasing a suspect named Martinka, who was wanted for aggravated assault. As they followed his speeding car, Martinka caused a major crash involving multiple vehicles, which left his car disabled near East Grant Road and North Campbell Avenue.
We don't have sirens on.
As the officers moved in to arrest him, Martinka pulled out a handgun and fired at them. Without hesitation, the officers returned fire, managing to stop Martinka before he could hurt anyone.
On the other side. I'm going on the other side. Shots fired! Shots fired! Back up! Joe, back up!
In this intense moment, a tactical team was lying in wait outside a retail store, ready to arrest a suspect. The second he stepped outside, the officers sprang into action. But the suspect had other plans. Instead of surrendering, he bolted, trying to escape. As the suspect ran, a K-9 officer quickly chased him down. Just when the dog caught up, the suspect pulled out a weapon, threatening the loyal K-9. Reacting swiftly to protect their dog, the SWAT officers ended the chase suddenly and dramatically. In another SWAT sting operation video, officers surrounded a house where a suspect named Harper was hiding. They arrived in an armored vehicle fully geared up for action. Harper, feeling trapped, made a daring escape by jumping out of a second-story window and quietly sneaking to the back of the house.
Video shows officials surrounding a house where Harper was hiding inside. Officers arrive in an armored vehicle wearing SWAT gear. Officials say Harper jumped out of it.
Suddenly, Harper decided to make a run for it, sprinting across the street. But in his rush, he tripped twice, trying to get away. The suspense builds as officers race down the sidewalk after him. Harper stumbles a third time, giving a K-9 officer the chance to close in on him.
As he runs down the sidewalk, he slips for a third time before a K-9 officer runs after him. Officials say Harper was eventually taken into custody. Right now, Harper is in the hospital recovering with injuries he sustained.
These SWAT officers moved quietly toward a house, ready for action. When they reached the door, they called out for the person inside to open it, but there was no response. With no other choice, they had to open it themselves. As soon as they entered, they saw someone holding a gun. The officers quickly shouted for him to drop the weapon, urging him again and again to cooperate. But the man refused to listen. The tension mounted as he raised his gun, and in a split second, the officers took action. The Houston Police Department shared body camera footage from a high-speed chase that ended dramatically. A suspect named Lewis led officers on a long pursuit, weaving through streets before finally pulling into a parking lot. He circled the lot again and again, trying to find a way out until HPD SWAT officers used a clever maneuver to trap his car.
Alright, 102, is it the Goodwill parking lot? You got units trying to box them in.
Lewis then stepped out of his car with a weapon in hand and pointed it at the officers. Shots rang out as he fired at them, and officers Dexter, Gonzalez, and deputies from Harris County Precinct 4 quickly returned fire, bringing the suspect down.
Get back!
102, no more units. Watch your crossfire. Find cover. Watch your crossfire. No more units.
11 o'clock.
In a surprising twist, a streamer found himself in a shocking situation while sitting alone in his car, enjoying a meal. Suddenly, police surrounded him, and confusion filled the air. Officers commanded him to step out of the vehicle, and before he knew it, he was taken into custody.
Yeah? Yes, sir? Huh?
A traffic camera spotted someone suspicious, dressed all in black, walking toward a school. The hallway camera then showed a young man heading toward a classroom, carrying a rifle. Just as the man approached the classroom, a student in the other hallway caught a glimpse of him. Sensing danger, the child quickly ran away, barely escaping before the sound of gunshots echoed from the classroom. Moments after the crime began, police officers arrived on campus, but they waited for the SWAT team to take control. Equipped with guns, shields, helmets, and bulletproof vests, the SWAT team bravely confronted the suspect, ending the situation and preventing further harm. The Las Vegas Police Department released footage of a dramatic raid that quickly turned upside down. In the video, officers arrived at the suspect's hideout and wasted no time. They announced their presence loudly while forcing the door open at the same time. Once inside, an occupant who had been lying on the couch panicked, grabbed a gun, and fired at the officers. Reacting swiftly, the officers returned fire. But to their shock, the man they shot wasn't the suspect they were searching for.
Search warrant! Mr. Police Department, search warrant! Mr. 3050 South Village. Police Department, search warrant! Search warrant!
Well, Jar.
The body cam shows when police called out to the suspects, trying to convince them to release their hostage, but their words went unheard. As the criminals emerged from the garage, one held a weapon against the hostage, and they attempted to make their escape. In the confusion, one suspect got caught by the officers while the others fled through the neighborhood.
Back up now! Now!
Come on, man.
Back up!
This shit is not working.
No, over here! Over here! To the left! To the right!
Come on, bro.
Keep it working!
Relax. Come on.
Hostage!
Fortunately, the hostage was eventually able to return home safely. The captured criminal was handcuffed and placed in a police vehicle, but the situation was still serious. A nearby man was found with injuries and urgently needed medical help. Officers quickly secured the area, ensuring no further threats were present. They spoke to a shaken resident who described how the assailants had barged into the wounded man's house while he was leaving, driving a silver Kia SUV.
Are you hit? What happened?
As the officers continued their search, they spotted a red SUV trying to leave the area. The driver was instructed to turn back, and the officers kept patrolling. After speaking with more residents, They realized the suspects had been in the red SUV and had forced the driver to help them escape. With quick action, the officers apprehended both suspects.
Watch the back! Don't move! Don't move! One in the back! One in the back! One in the back!
As soon as the officers stepped out of their vehicle, they found themselves in the middle of an intense gunfight with a suspect hiding in his parked car. Bullets flew through the air as both sides exchanged fire in a high-stakes standoff. When the dust finally settled, the officers cautiously fired warning shots, urging the suspect to surrender, but the suspect had passed on.
Hey! I've got cover! Get him! Get rich!
This body cam captured a surprising moment when a SWAT team arrived at an elderly woman's home to serve a court-sanctioned warrant. They were on a mission to retrieve items like weapons, cash, vehicles, and a phone that had been tracked to her address using the Find My iPhone app. Despite the woman's protests, insisting she was innocent and lived alone, the officers continued their search. They checked every nook and cranny, including the shed and attic, but found no evidence of the alleged theft.
Searching inside the shed, officers come up empty-handed.
It's clear.
But the grandmother's challenging day wasn't over yet. The officers began questioning her, asking if her son or grandkids were involved in any trouble. The search continued inside her home, but eventually the team had to call it quits as they found none of the stolen items.
The American Civil Liberties Union announced the $3.8 million verdict in Johnson's favor on Monday of this week. Broken down, that's more than $1 million in compensatory damages and $2.5 million in...
A Blink camera captured the moment when SWAT officers stormed into what appeared to be an empty room. The tension was high as they moved swiftly and silently, checking every corner, unsure of what might be waiting for them. It seemed like part of a much bigger search as the team cautiously made their way through the building.
Check the side of the bed, we got a closet.
Rick Massa, a seasoned SWAT officer, recalls the harrowing North Hollywood shootout that changed his life forever. On February 28, 1997, a police officer burst into the academy in his black and white patrol car, urgently shouting about a bank robbery in progress. The two suspects, Neil Mataserino and Larry Phillips, were highly skilled bandits, ready for anything.
I am Rick Massa, and the North Hollywood shootout changed my life forever.
When Rick and his team arrived at the chaotic scene, they quickly assessed the situation and located Larry Phillips. His AK-47 had malfunctioned, but that didn't stop him. Armed with a Beretta 9mm, he moved down the street, firing at anything that moved. In the confusion, he even tried to carjack anyone nearby after being shot in the hand.
Once they were thoroughly upset, they exited the bank, walking right into a uniformed patrol officer.
Everybody stay down, rapid automatic fire. They're panning the area with fire.
As soon as they saw the black and whites, they opened up on anything and everything that moved.
As Phillips noticed the SWAT team approaching, he fired several rounds at their vehicle, creating a moment of danger. Rick couldn't see him clearly since he was hiding behind his car, but he spotted Phillips's feet sticking out from behind a nearby vehicle. With quick thinking, Rick took aim and shot, hitting Phillips in the ankle and bringing him down.
And I see his feet. So I now shoot and I hit him 2 or 3 times in his ankle, which drops him. We approached the suspect and I pulled the suspect's mask off.
This video shows when a SWAT robot was used to apprehend a suspect. The suspect, realizing the robot was approaching, quickly threw a bedsheet over it to block its cameras. But that wouldn't stop the determined robot. With a clever move, the robot opened a window and released a puff of tear gas. The room quickly filled with gas, prompting the suspect to come out. The impressive robot then used its strength to pin him down, holding him steady until the officers arrived to assist. Alabama woman found herself in a scary situation after live streaming her arrest during a dramatic SWAT team raid. It all started when officers surrounded her home in Decatur, Alabama. While the officers called out for her to surrender, she continued to live stream, praying and chatting with her viewers as the tension built.
If something happens, they said they have a search warrant for someone, but they surrounded the house. No knock, no nothing.
As the standoff continued, SWAT officers demanded that she show her hands and come out of the house. Despite her pleas and attempts to resist, the situation escalated. Ultimately, the officers entered the home, taking her into custody for her connection to a kidnapping case, theft, and a crime against life.
There's hands! Two people. Do not move fast. Keep your hands up. Walk toward the front door.
With the record button still on, Moore's Facebook viewers are witnesses to the entire SWAT takedown.
An IRL streamer named Ryan was live on air, but he was quite drunk when the SWAT team arrived at his door, knocking and calling out for him. When they didn't get a response, they decided to enter the room. Inside, they found Ryan sitting there, oblivious to the commotion outside. Meanwhile, his anonymous viewers were watching the whole thing unfold. They were sending tips and comments.
Anonymous donated $4. 400 years of not okay.
Brian.
In this 911 call, a person reported a shocking situation, saying he had shot his parents during an argument and was still holding a handgun. The dispatcher quickly asked for details about the weapon, and the caller mentioned it was his dad's black handgun. He claimed to have his parents locked in a closet, but reassured the dispatcher that he wasn't hurting his little brother. Despite being asked to put the gun down, the caller refused and said he might even set the house on fire after pouring gasoline around.
Do you have any weapons on you?
Yeah, I do.
What kind of weapons do you have?
A handgun.
What kind of handgun is it?
As the situation unfolded, SWAT officers arrived, ready for a possible hostage scenario. They carefully took their positions when suddenly, a man appeared at the front door. Tension filled the air as one officer had to make a quick decision and discharge his weapon. The 28-year-old man was later taken to a local hospital, but sadly, he was pronounced lifeless.
I don't know, it's my dad.
What color is it?
It's black. I'm just pointing the gun at them, making sure they stay in the closet. My mom and my little brother.
Okay, is there any way you can put the gun up?
Surrounded by the police, the assailant sat in the middle of the road, clutching a weapon and looking determined not to budge. The officers needed a clever plan to distract him. So, they came up with a trick. They gave the suspect an already shaken soda. As the assailant struggled to open it, the drink started fizzling, making him drop his guard. That was the moment the SWAT sniper, perched far away, took aim. With a swift shot, he expertly knocked the weapon from the assailant's hand. Seeing their chance, the other officers rushed in to safely take him into custody.
Cunningly camouflaged army blokes appear out of nowhere.
In this body cam footage, a SWAT team executes a daring rescue mission inside a dangerous apartment. To kick off the operation, they throw a flashbang grenade and storm inside to save a hostage in distress.
It looks like a movie, but it's real. A SWAT team throws a flashbang grenade and storms an apartment to save the hostage.
The frightened woman had been trapped for 4 long hours, screaming as the armed suspect used her as a shield. With gunfire erupting, officers took their shot and successfully hit the gunman, bringing the chaos to an end. Though relieved to be safe, the woman had one more concern: her precious kitten, Neptune.
I got him. The woman is safe, but fears her kitten named Neptune.
In another clip, filmed from across the street, the gunman can be seen holding the woman at gunpoint, threatening her life. Just then, the SWAT team makes their move. The criminal attempts to flee, but is quickly stopped.
Gun to someone's head. What? That's when the SWAT team moves in. The gunman ducks and runs across the room, but there's no escape.
Earlier that same day, the gunman had fired shots at a family, grazing a 14-year-old boy, and even tried to steal a car from a woman. Police tracked him to the downtown Los Angeles apartment complex, where the intense standoff unfolded on the 4th floor. Surveillance footage captured him running into the building with officers in close pursuit. Another streamer found himself in a scary situation when someone made a false call to the police, claiming he planned to do something terrible. The caller told the officers that the streamer was going to harm his mom and blow up the building. The San Pablo police received a frantic 911 call from a woman at a home on Dover Avenue. She explained that her husband, Andrea, was acting strangely and showing signs of schizophrenia. As the dispatcher listened, they heard Smith's unsettling voice in the background. He was threatening to hurt police officers and was in a dark place, leaving everyone worried, especially since family members and children were still inside the house.
And what's going on there?
Okay, so I want to get a 5150 assessment. My husband is showing signs of schizophrenia.
He's showing signs of what?
Like schizophrenia, like...
okay.
Yeah, just mental issues and...
I don't have mental issues. This isn't fair for my wife to sit here and act like...
She's actually really afraid of the police. So I don't know how to handle this without it being a big deal.
Okay.
When the officers arrived, they calmly tried to talk to the suspect in the front yard, hoping to reach him. But he didn't respond. Instead, he hid in the side yard. Suddenly, he started throwing pieces of brick at the officers, creating a worrisome situation. The police used tasers and beanbag rounds to try to subdue him, but nothing seemed to work. Then things escalated. Andrea grabbed a folding chair as a shield and a 3-foot metal pole. With a burst of energy, he charged at one of the officers. Just as it seemed like a dangerous moment was about to unfold, the officer skillfully dodged the attack. Another officer stepped in, and they worked together to safely bring Smith under control. This video takes a surprising turn compared to other SWAT operations. Instead of the usual tension of apprehending a suspect, something unexpected happens. After what looks like a chaotic raid, a SWAT officer is seen on camera in a shocking moment. He pushes a photographer who was simply trying to capture the scene dangerously close to a fire. Dashcam footage captures the thrilling moments as police race to Vandergrove Honda, arriving just 12 minutes after a disgruntled former employee was fired from the dealership. The scene unfolds in a way no one could have anticipated. Officers, relying on panicked bystanders for guidance, quickly zero in on their target, 25-year-old Abbas Al-Muta, standing ominously in the parking lot. Within 2 minutes of their arrival, the situation escalates in a flash. Gunshots pierce the air as police open fire, taking down the suspect. Questions still linger in the aftermath. It's unclear how many rounds Al-Muta discharged from his rifle, or whether the weapon was legally obtained. Chilling surveillance footage from inside the dealership corroborates the harrowing witness accounts, showing Al-Muta moving through the building before his final confrontation.
Al-Mutari fired the rifle, or whether that gun was obtained legally. But surveillance video shows him inside the dealership, confirming witness accounts from that day.
The situation grew even more ominous as police revealed that the shooter, Abbas Al-Muta, had entered the dealership's service bay before the chaotic gunfire erupted. Investigators are still grappling with a critical question. Was he aiming at a specific target, or were his shots fired at random in a blind rage? The investigation has taken an unexpected turn, with authorities now exploring chilling claims from Al-Muta's relatives, suggesting that another family member might have been working at the dealership, adding a potential personal motive to an already complex and volatile situation. As of the time of the report, it was nearly 2 weeks after the violent confrontation, and Al-Muta was hospitalized. His silence left investigators in the dark, with no answers to the critical questions haunting the case. Meanwhile, the 3 officers who fired their weapons that day returned to duty. A disabled man was awakened in the middle of the night by loud calls from a SWAT team outside his house. Feeling confused and scared, he slowly gets out of bed with his partner. They make their way to the door, and just as they reach the entrance, they comply with the instructions from the officers, but then the SWAT team suddenly starts shooting, hitting the man.
Go! Oh, shot! No! He can't! You shot!
With flashing lights and police cars forming a perimeter, the Richmond Police SWAT team used a loudspeaker to call out to anyone inside. No one answered. After a moment of waiting, the officers made their move and broke down the front door.
Where's the police?
Breach.
Move in, breach. In the window. Breach.
Inside, they encountered an older suspect who was unexpectedly holding a gun. Tension filled the air as an officer quickly responded, firing his weapon. Just then, another person who had been hiding decided to surrender to the officers, bringing a sudden end to the standoff. The students in this classroom were left in shock when SWAT officers suddenly burst in, searching for a potential shooter. Drone and body camera footage captured the moments leading up to a tragic event in Northern California. The Yolo County SWAT team arrived at Hector Perez's trailer to serve an arrest warrant related to child assault charges. For 4 long hours, officials tried to reach out to Perez, calling from outside and contacting people he knew, but there was no response. To get a better look, they deployed a drone, which confirmed that Perez was indeed inside. Officials urged Perez to come out with his hands up, but he didn't listen. They then sent in a robot to enter the trailer and used a pole camera to search for him. When Perez grabbed the camera, they decided to use an armored vehicle to approach the front door, tossing in a phone to communicate, but Perez ignored it. As a last resort, they deployed CS gas to encourage him to come out.
This is the Yolo County Sheriff's Office. You need to come, step outside of the trailer with your hands up and surrender.
Finally, Perez exited the trailer injured and holding a knife. Officers called for him to show his hands and fired a less lethal weapon to try to disarm him. When Perez didn't drop the knife, an officer had to fire his weapon. Perez moved toward another officer behind a propane tank, while 3 more took cover behind a tree. He eventually dropped the knife near the trailer, and officials rushed in to provide life-saving assistance, but sadly, he did not survive. Finally, a streamer who got caught in a big surprise. This alleged drug lord was happily showing off his cash when suddenly he heard the police coming for him.
Man, this shit don't stop, man. We got this shit, man. This shit don't stop, man. This shit don't stop, man. It's the first one went.
The suspect quickly dashed for the door, but just moments later, the sounds of things crashing and bright lights filled the air as SWAT officers surrounded the house. This body cam footage captured a gripping 30-hour standoff in Charlotte, North Carolina, filled with tension. Police were called to a home where a man named Ty was threatening his neighbors and officers. When they arrived, Ty shouted through a megaphone, claiming they couldn't arrest him, insisting he was untouchable. His mother revealed that he was armed with a revolver, and despite the officers' best efforts to talk him down, Ty stayed inside, ranting about religion and the government.
I am above the law. You're gonna have to kill me. I believe in Lord Jesus Christ.
As the situation grew more serious, the SWAT team was brought in. Using drones and removing doors and windows, they worked to gain access to the house. Ty even attacked one of the drones with a bat, and police cut the power to the house to gain control. Negotiators remained calm, speaking with Ty over the phone, trying to convince him to come out peacefully. Finally, after long hours of suspense and negotiation, Ty stepped outside and was safely taken into custody. SWAT officers were on the scene preparing to serve a search warrant at a house when, out of nowhere, the house suddenly exploded. This body cam footage captured some truly scary moments as a SWAT team arrived at a suspect's supposed home. Wasting no time, they immediately sprang into action and took down the front door. But as soon as they entered, the homeowner quickly surrendered, pleading with the officers, saying it was just her and her baby inside.
Come outside.
I'll put shoes on there.
Is it a permanent bed? Come out. Is it a permanent bed?
Huh?
The officers carefully searched the home, but aside from the sick baby resting in its cradle, they found nothing suspicious. They questioned the handcuffed homeowner, who tearfully explained that they were at the wrong house. After realizing the mistake, the officers removed the handcuffs, and the medical team rushed to check on the baby, who seemed frightened by the loud breach.
Scary but cool.
What's that?
Huh? Like SWAT. I've seen videos of it on YouTube. Like that's what we said watching my eat stuff and my boyfriend.
In a dramatic turn of events, a SWAT team raided a location and arrested 3 key organizers from the Atlanta Solidarity Fund. This group had been working to raise money to help bail out protesters who were speaking out against the construction of a huge police training facility known as Cop City. This body camera video reveals the dramatic moments leading up to a chaotic event in Austin, Texas, on September 23rd. Earlier that day, a woman had dialed 911, reporting a domestic disturbance involving her children's father. The man, later identified as Antonio Gonzalez, was said to be acting violently and had a gun.
Daddy's here. He's not supposed to be on property. He's trespassing, and I'm trying to get my kids from him, but I told him to meet me at Warrant. He's over here at my apartment.
The woman told officers the man later identified.
Police arrived about 15 minutes later, spotting the suspect holding a handgun. Officers tried to talk him down, urging him to put the gun down, but Gonzalez ignored their requests and continued pacing around with the weapon.
That 911 call came in. At the time, Gonzalez did not have any children, but was armed with a weapon.
We're trying to get you water, bro.
A crisis intervention officer and a SWAT vehicle were brought in when Gonzalez made repeated threats to harm himself. For nearly 2 hours, the officers talked to him over the phone, trying to resolve the situation peacefully. Gonzalez threatened to harm himself if the police didn't shoot him first. When a taser failed to stop him and he reached for the gun in his waistband, officers were forced to take action. A woman found herself in a terrifying situation, held hostage by a man waving a knife and warning officers to stay back or he would hurt her. The scene seemed hopeless until, in a flash, a brave Chinese SWAT officer disguised as a civilian leapt into action. In one swift move, he disarmed the attacker and threw him to the ground. As the assailant hit the floor, other officers rushed in to rescue the woman, bringing her to safety just in time. The police first tried calling Tariq Nasheed, but he found the call suspicious and hung up. After the 4th call, he went to check his front door, only to find people outside with guns pointed at him. Alarmed, he called the police, who instructed him to step outside with his ID. They had received a report claiming there were bombs in his house and that his wife was being held against her will, tied up. However, the entire story was false. The police suspected it was a case of swatting.
This is the police. You need to come outside. What are you wearing? So I hung up again. I'm like, that sounds weird.
A 4th call sent Nasheed to his front door.
I looked out the front door and there was people with guns.
Even in the midst of all this, Nasheed remained calm and asked why he was being handcuffed if the police already believed the call might be a fake. In this video, a group of rioters shouted at the SWAT team, telling them to back off. However, things quickly took a turn when the officers responded by firing rubber bullets and using tear gas to control the crowd. It didn't end well for the rioters as the situation got out of hand. This body cam footage shows SWAT officers using a bullhorn to try to get a suspect, Matvey Klimenko, to come out. Instead of listening, Klimenko threw things at the police and suddenly rushed out with a knife. He then ran through several homes in a desperate attempt to escape. The officers released their K9, Zeke, to help track him down. In a tense moment, it looked like Klimenko was about to harm the dog, which is when the police had to take action and shot him.